and few familiar faces and few new faces. I believe there are some participants online as well. So what I feel is that I'll start with the basics of OBE, that is the genesis of OBE and what actually OBE is, and then eventually go on to discuss on how to write COs, and POs are of course given by NBA, and eventually then how to assess COs and POs. So I think the first half of the discussion in the morning session will be around the fundamentals of OB, which in any way would be common in the older version of SAR and the new version of SAR. When I'm saying new version of SAR, that means it is for tier 1, the universities and the autonomous colleges. Second half of the morning session eventually last about an hour or so. We'll discuss on the salient changes in the new SAR. What are the new changes in SAR, and how to actually understand those changes and so on. So that's how I plan to take this 3 hour session. Also, please pardon me for my bad voice. I'm running with sore throat and cough. So there can be some interruptions in between. So please pardon me for that. Also, I believe it's the third day of the workshop or the FDP program. So I'm sure in first 2 days also you must have got quite a few understandings on OBE and various terms you might have already understood. There can be some commonality between what I'm saying, I'm going to say, and what previous speakers have already told you. So I think that's the beauty of OB, because it's more of a philosophy rather than a formula, wherein it's not direct 2 + 2 = 4 kind of thing. It's essentially a philosophy. It's a contour given by Washington Accord to various countries, which India has adopted under NBA. And in NBA also, more or less the same contour has been continued, not very rigid boundaries, but a broader contour. So the philosophy is that you devise your own way of expressing your teaching learning process as course outcome and so on. Devise your own method of assessing those, although it cannot be totally offline with those contours given by NBA. But it's also true that there is no fixed formula on how to write COs or how to compute COs and so on. So with this background, if I can start. Yeah. So as I was saying, we'll be discussing broadly on what OB is, and then of course vision, mission, and POs, because they form an integral part of the whole practice of OB. They become the kind of foundational documents or foundational statements on which the entire OB concept is built up. Then, of course, little more details of COs and COPO mapping and how to do attainments and so on. So that's for the first part of today's morning session. Yeah, so as we all know, we all have been seeing and reading different statements and deliberations, that today we need to be little we need to be little sensitive on creativity, application, analysis, collaborative learning, and so on. If you read World Economic Forum's report, for last 2-3 years, I've been at least seeing that what traits are being required in today's graduate. They all are essentially talking about many of these terms. And if you look at our conventional way of teaching, whether when I was a student in 90s or late 80s, there was hardly any focus on these terms. We were just, professor would come and lecture and go without actually bothering that what I'm gaining or what skills or what attitude or attribute I am gaining and so on. And of course, lifelong learning with AI becoming so disruptive. I mean, till about 4 or 5 years back, or maybe just before COVID, and before COVID and after COVID, a lot of changes we all are seeing. So it's important that we somehow inculcate this habit of lifelong learning amongst our students. And of course, everything, whatever we are doing, has to align to the sustainable development goals. One or more of sustainable development goals that have been identified by the UN, whether engineers or managers or lawyers or any other practitioners, if whatever they are doing is not aligned to the one or more SDGs, then probably there is a challenge in the whole process of teaching learning. So if you see, and I'm sure you must have heard also or read also, that the new SAR format of tier 1 institutions and eventually tier 2 would also follow soon. There is a lot of emphasis on aligning whatever we are doing to the SDGs. So it's important that we keep that in mind. So breaking barriers of the conventional education, the new philosophy have been devised of teaching learning process, wherein as an institution, then as a department, and then as an individual, you need to see that what you want your students to be capable of. So first you need to decide that, and then eventually orient your entire teaching and academic processes aligning to that. Teaching, of course, is there that you need to align to those outcomes which you want in your students to have. Then other activities like your evaluation practices, your other extracurricular and co-curricular activities, they all should be then aligned to that particular aspect. And then, of course, you assess your student not only on what marks he or she is getting or what grade one is getting, but whether those competencies, whether those skill sets, whether those attributes that you want in your students, that they are being achieved or not. That is something you need to evaluate and then continuously improve the process. So when I'm saying that, yeah, a little later, so that so please note it down. Even if I'm not able to respond to all the questions in this small session of 3 hours, I can at least respond back over the mail or over the WhatsApp or in some way or the other. Okay, so I was saying something. Never mind, it will come back. So essentially, there are three main pillars of OBE: outcome-based curriculum, teaching learning, and assessment. All you can see it's written as outcome-based curriculum, outcome-based teaching learning, and outcome-based assessment. And if you look at the new SAR, the first three criteria start with these three statements only. So that has been a significant change in SAR, the way SAR is, at least the new SAR is written, rather than talking about vision, mission separately and curriculum separately. NBA has also realized that it's important to pay due emphasis on outcome-based processes. And what are these? We will eventually see it in subsequent course of discussion. So in nutshell, OB is say what you want to do, say what you want to achieve, then do what you are saying. I mean, your entire process, as we were discussing, your teaching, learning, and other co-curricular, extracurricular activities, your assessment, everything should be aligned to this that you want to achieve. And then prove it. You need to have a documentary evidence of that in terms of assessment, in terms of indirect assessment, and so on. And then continuously improve it. Okay, so this is what I wanted to say. When I was saying initially that there is no fixed formula of writing COs, There is no fixed formula of mapping COs with POs, or there is no fixed formula of how the COs to need to be attained or POs to be attained, because it's a continuous process. You need to devise some process and then see that you are continuously improving your process. It's essentially a quality improvement, or you can say continuous quality improvement process. So don't worry whether the process that you are devising or deciding on how to write COs or how to map COs with POs or how to go about with your calculations. So don't worry about the process. See that there is a scope for improvement. And of course, when I'm saying don't worry about how you are writing COs or mapping COs with POs and so on, so it cannot be arbitrary as well. So there are some broader guidelines for that, which we will see. So in nutshell, this is how the entire OB model or process looks like. You start with the vision of your institution, then devise the vision for your department and maybe vision for your program as well. And how to achieve those visions through mission statements. What broadly you want to do so that you can achieve your mission. That should be your mission. And then specifically for your UG graduates or PG graduates, you will have program educational objectives. What are these? We will again see it shortly. And then of course, so these three becomes little philosophical part of the OB, wherein you want to achieve this is how you want to achieve and so on. This is little more practical, wherein you start with, and you'll get all these slides, so please don't worry about taking photos of these. So this is little more practical from here onwards, wherein you have program outcomes. Program outcomes will vary from undergrad to postgrad, from engineering to management and so on. And then of course, writing CO for each course or each project or each seminar or each internship and so on. And then of course, your measurement means assessment tools. You need to decide at the beginning itself that what assessment tools you want to have to assess your COs. We will see all these. But if there is any short question, we can quickly discuss that. And of course, you will get some results, whether the COs have been attained, achieved, assessed properly or not. Based on that results, you will analyze them and then take corrective actions and continue to improve on the whole process. Yes, sir. Attained and achieved. So attained is numerically. So when you say I want to jump 1.5 meters and you jump, so you have attained that target. And when you say I want to go for high jump and you went for high jump, that is achieved. So attained is little absolute, achieved is little philosophical. Philosophical is non-tangible. Achieved, let's say, I mean, top 1% income taxpayers of the country and something like that. In the context. So there is nothing called achieved in the present context. It's attained or not attained. It's absolute only in terms of COs.
Last year to this year, then how can I show the improvement?
So I think good question. So if you are saying syllabus is changed,
yes.
If your COs have also been changed and relationship of COs with POs also has been changed, then of course you will start afresh. Let's say you are introducing a new course altogether. So the new course itself would have all new COs, all new mappings and so on. There is a minor change in your syllabus, then I'm sure there will not be much change in how your COs have been written or how COs have been mapped with POs.
That one CO is changed from the last year to this year. So obviously, how it affect the mapping? How can we handle it?
So once CO has been changed, so mapping would be changed. So some attainment calculations would be changed for sure. But in overall scheme of things, there will not be much difference. Whatever weightage you want to give to that particular CO, let's say you want to give 15%, there are 6 COs. So 6 COs means 15 to 18% of weightage of each CO. If there is a variation more than that in your CO attainment, from previous semester to this semester, previous year to this year, then you can devise your corrective action plan accordingly. But if your change in CO attainment is less than 15%, you can give a justification. This variation is because of change of a particular CO.
Okay.
New type of the format. So, what are those SDGs, and how do we incorporate those SDGs? Because one or two, I think 2 to 3 are already incorporated, like environmental and concern and those kind of things. But what about others?
So not necessarily that we have to address all 17 SDGs. Whatever are relevant to your program, your courses, your projects, your internships. So those only you will be able to map. For example, economical or intergovernmental transactions or collaborations. So those kind of SDGs you may not be able to achieve. But yes, something on energy, environment, water for all, education for all, even health, because some of your projects can be related to basic health needs and so on. So those SDGs you can directly map and address. Yes. Yeah, you have. Yes. Not in the outcomes, we'll see it.
One small question. In case of mechanical engineering, earlier and now we have course revision already.
Course revision, okay.
So the basic name of the course is same, but what we have done is we have included the labs which were not there as a part of main theory course. Now because of that, the COs has changed. Lot of COs has so for the labs, some of the COs combined with the theory course. So how we will see these improvement and how will show that or so
No, I think you can still go with the comparison with the previous course. Why? Because let's say thermodynamics. Let's say you have theoretical part of thermodynamics, different laws and how different laws are used for different engineering applications and so on. Now, only thing you are adding is to practically demonstrate. The student will be able to perform second order of heat transfer experiment and so on. So I think there will be marginal change in how COs are mapped, or maybe one or two additional PO will get mapped to the existing mapping. Let's say if you are using some software or some other mathematical tool to establish the relationship between laws of thermodynamics to some engineering application, so that PO5 will get added as, or if you are practically exposing a student how complex engineering problem is getting solved or addressed. So earlier, if you are mapping it with 2, now you would map it with 3. So there will be slight variation. And I think those variations, it's not always apple to apple or perfect mapping that you have to keep it in mind. So because we may miss out on a lot of other important things. If there is any specific, with example, we'll see. Sure, sure. And specifically, how practical component which is getting added to theory, how mapping would change. Whatever you have done, we can specifically discuss on that. Yes, sir. Last question.
Sir, last question.
Ha.
So, sir, since you are associated with us since 2023, and we have been getting an understanding of the philosophical vision and mission statements. So now I just want to know that where we missed last time. Can you please enlighten us? What was the tangible loss that we missed so that we are revisiting the same things?
So I think that was little more, I mean, specific a question to a particular process. We can discuss it offline because the other online audience and other audience may not be too, I mean, related to this question. We'll discuss it during tea break or lunch break, if it is okay. Okay, so vision is little more wish list kind of a statement, and it should be little simple. When I go for NBA audits, I see some institutions, they write their vision statement almost like a paragraph, which sometimes loses its intent. I think it should be very crisp, maybe 1.5, 2-liner statement, so that it stays with everybody, it stays with all the stakeholders. Idea is that all their efforts then eventually can be aligned in that direction. And mission statements, as we discussed, are little more action-oriented statements. They can be 4 to 5, 3 to 5 in numbers, wherein you devise broader strategy on how to achieve those, how to achieve that vision statement, vision statement. So important is that you involve stakeholders, both internal and external, and demonstrate their involvement in the process of writing COs and POs, writing vision and mission statement. So most of the institutions, while everybody would have vision and mission statement, and department will also have vision and mission statement, but demonstrating that there was a decent participation of internal and external stakeholder is sometimes missing. So please see that this aspect is taken care of. Okay, PEOs, sometimes there is a misunderstanding on what PEOs are, program educational objectives. And institutions, they tend to write it as extension of POs, that the student will have ability to, or a student will have understanding of fundamental engineering or complex engineering and so on. So they somehow write POs as extension of POs, whereas PEOs are meant to be the statements which will tell that what your graduates after 3-4 years of graduation will be able to demonstrate in their professional life. So these are the statements meant for your eventually your alumni, alumni of 3-4 years of work in their own respective fields, what they will be able to demonstrate. So that you have to keep it in mind. And these are typically assessed through interaction with alumni in your alumni meets, or interaction with the industry where your alumni are working, because they can actually give the feedback that how your alumni are performing in the field. Now, what these statements would be, let's say this is a typical example from civil engineering. And if you see, I'm not going to read all the statements, but typically what is expected that in your PEO statement, student eventually will should demonstrate technical competency. A student should demonstrate leadership or teamwork or ethical standards and lifelong learning, and involvement in socio-economic development. So typically PEO statement should be 3 to 4, and your PEO statement should focus some of these keywords: demonstrating technical competency, demonstrating leadership ability, teamwork, ethics, lifelong learning, and affiliation to societal development. Other language, other part, you can devise at your convenience, write as per your convenience and standard practice. But some of the key attributes should be addressed in your statements. And these attributes, which we have been discussing, you will get to know whether these attributes have been passed on to your graduates or not through interaction with them and their employers in various forums. So there is no direct assessment method for PEOs. No, nobody will see. It is only up to you to continue to interact and polish these statements. So there is no formal, there are no formal marks for that. Formal marks are for the fact that you have POs written down and demonstrating that how stakeholders were involved in writing those PO statements. As I've said, these are little philosophical statements, so there is no direct marking given for these. Yes. Yeah. So after the graduation, they should demonstrate that. After graduation, 3-4 years of graduation, they will demonstrate these abilities. And for these abilities, we are preparing them now. See, you will have some activities in your department or in your institution which will prepare them for these, or at least seeding would be done for these attributes. You would involve them in organizing some event. They'll develop teamwork. They'll develop some leadership. You will involve them some social internship or some social projects. They'll get sensitivity towards society and so on. And of course, technical competency, they will in any way, in the duration of 4 years, you are equipping them with that.
Students, they don't go into the technical field, they join some other line. Then how will we, or how this concept will be applicable or more feasible, you can say?
So I think other than technical competency, other attributes can always be
Yeah,
there.
those are quite generic, and those can or must have to be-
Leadership, teamwork,
team.
society, lifelong learning, these attributes in any case would be there and would be can be demonstrated in any other field. Okay, technical competence is one thing. Your electronics engineering is going to become a financial consultant or somebody. That's where is the challenge. So I think, I mean, this is a trend, nobody can help it. But the education providers' motive is that you equip them and for the skills for which they have enrolled in the program. So if there are some exceptions, or even if there are some decent size, nobody can help it. This is the trend of today. But this is how it is. I mean, you cannot do anything about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so POs, as we were discussing, these become the first actionable set of statements around which the entire OB revolves. So they actually have been taken up from Washington Accord, and Washington Accord has taken it from International Engineering Alliance, IEA. So IEA and Washington Accord together framed these statements. They were earlier 12 in numbers for tier 1 institutions, which have now been reduced to 11 for tier 1 institutions, and for tier 2 it's still 12 in number for engineering, and for management there is a different set of statements. And for us, these statements are given and slightly fine-tuned for Indian requirements. And for us, it has been given by NBA. Now, when we are talking about OB with reference to NBA, and largely we are talking about OB with reference to NBA only, please consider the POs given by NBA. Because now if you look at UGC guideline on NEP, so UGC also has given certain graduate attributes which are 13 or 14 in number. If you look at what you call National Credit Framework, here again NEP has given, and NEP, when I'm saying UGC, has given a certain set of graduate attributes. So they are reference statements for that particular purpose. But for our purpose of OB, please refer to the POs given by NBA only. Okay, so POs, as I was saying at the beginning, they are the statements or they are the attributes which we expect our students to gain as part of their undergrad engineering education, or as part of their masters in engineering or masters in business education, and so on. So they are generic set of attributes for any graduate engineer. Here, if we are talking about engineering graduates specifically. But now talking about program specific outcomes, or let's say you have civil engineering, mechanical or electronics or computer science engineering. No, that's okay. As long as it is going on, that's fine. So for discipline specific outcomes, you can have PSOs, program specific outcomes. Program specific outcomes can be 2 to 4 in number. Let's say you restrict it to 3. These can be specific abilities for your particular discipline. For example, again, taking it from civil engineering, able to design building structure, water supply and sewage system, and so on. Now, PSO can be aligned to certain specific, what you call facility or specific minor or specific specialization that you are giving in your institution for a particular program. And then the ability of a student to use that facility and generate certain ability can be written as PSO. For example, let's say electronics engineering has now 5G and 6G communication lab. So your PSO can be student will have able to design 5G network or 6G network and so on. So if you have any specific facility, infrastructure, or specialization in a particular program, then student having ability to use that facility or infrastructure or specialization can be reflected as part of your PSO statement. No, PSO is, PO is given by NBA. So it's a sacrosanct. You cannot do anything about it. You have to take them as it is. For PSO, for PEO, for COs, you can have your internal, PEO is slightly different because it's a little macro level. But for PSO and CO, you can have your internal departmental level advisory committee or some such committee which would approve them.
So just an internal committee approval is enough?
Yes.
Director or BOS, nothing is
Even
needed?
director is also not involved because director being academically specialized in certain field may not be able to contribute academically in all the fields. So here I think it can rest with the HOD.
Okay.
No, there are 11 POs. We'll come to that. You can give that person a response that there are 11 POs, not 8. And what are those? We'll come in the second session. Okay, COs. So COs eventually now become the backbone of entire OB because you write COs, you map COs with POs, you devise your CO attainment calculation method, and from there the PO attainment would come. So your entire OB practice actually rests with how you write COs and how you map them with POs, and what's your overall attainment process, CO attainment process. So philosophically, COs are actually what a student is expected to know in terms of skills, attributes, and what a student is able to do. So if you see, COs are related to skills, knowledge, and ability. It's not about the process. It's not about how you are teaching and what you are teaching. It's about what a student will be able to do after completion of the course. So it's keeping that in mind, please see that you write your COs. Typically, if you are spending 6 to 8 lectures on a particular skill or attribute or knowledge, then only write CO about that skill or attribute. It should not so happen that you are spending only 1 or 2 lectures or 2 or 3 lectures on a particular skill and framing a CO for that. And please also see that you write COs in such a way that they can be mapped to 1 or more POs. It cannot be a skill or an attribute which is beyond the scope of 11 or 12 POs as given by NBA. So, okay, we'll always start, okay, as I was saying, it should be student focused and not teacher focused. Student will be able to, can become your, part of your starting statement for all COs. So typically how you write COs is, you start with the student will be able to, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or whatever COs you want to write, they would come. So for every CO, by default, the student will be able to becomes the starting part of the statement. Because as we were discussing, these are the skills or knowledge or attributes that you want your student to demonstrate after completion of the course. And of course, they need to be aligned to PO, PSO, and so on. And for all practical purposes, we map them with the POs and PSOs. They can be 4 to 6 in number, and they need to be mapped with 1 or more POs. If you're not able to map the CO with any of the PO, that means that CO is irrelevant. There is some issue in writing that CO statement. We can avoid, or we should avoid these verbs: know, learn, acquire knowledge, gain knowledge. It should be a specific outcome-based verb, wherein they will be able to apply this theorem in solving real-life problem or solving complex engineering problem. They will be able to evaluate different what you call approaches to figure out the best approach for this particular problem, and so on. So these have to be clearly specified actionable verb with which your CO statement eventually would start. And those action verbs should be picked up from the revised Bloom's taxonomy levels. It should also not so happen that all your COs start with that the student will be able to understand this concept, the student will be able to understand this theorem, the student will be able to understand so and so and so forth. So it should, all COs eventually should grow from first level to third or fourth level of revised Bloom's taxonomy level. And try to avoid two verbs in same CO, because it will become very difficult for you to demonstrate attainment or demonstrate mapping of those action verbs with different POs. So try to avoid two action verb in single statement. For example, a student will be able to identify the failure mode and design the components, different automobile components, and so on. This we can skip, this we have already discussed. So typically a quick checklist on your COs, they should follow the SMART philosophy. I mean, they should be specific. They cannot be vague, as we were saying, no, they will gain knowledge and so on. They have to be very specific, measurable. You should be able to measure, you should be able to set some evaluation process which can eventually measure or evaluate a student on those skills. Achievable, you should not be writing some CO which eventually will not be possible to attain in the given time for that particular course. Because in that course also you have 5-6 COs. So eventually, I mean, you get 15 to 20% time for that particular CO. So, I mean, it should be achievable in that sense. Also, it should be achievable based on the facilities that you have. It should also be achievable based on the competency level of your students. So maybe a LNMIIT student, for LNMIIT student, you can set COs at a different level. But for the same course, another private institution, a tier 2 institution, may set at a slightly lower level, wherein if one feels the student level is not that much, that within 6 to 8 credit hours, one would be able to achieve that particular competency. So accordingly, based on your ability of your students, based on the facilities that you have, based on the time that you have, you should set the COs. Of course, they should be relevant and I mean, within the given time, a student should be able to achieve that. Now, these are some typical COs. Evaluate, analyze, design, analyze, and so on. Please don't go by the number of COs, although there are 7 here in this slide. It is just to show that maybe how you can write different COs. And of course, there was one overarching statement that the student will be able to evaluate, analyze, design, and so on. Okay, so this is a quick checklist whether all the boxes are ticked while you are writing the CO or not. Does the CO begin with an action verb? Is the CO stated in terms of student performance rather than the teacher's performance? Is the CO stated as learning product rather than learning process? Proper level of generality and the COs should remain independent from each other. And it should be attainable in the given context, as we were discussing student background, requisite competencies, facilities, time, and so on. So these are few things you need to keep it in mind while writing your COs. Yes, sir. Sorry? Why do you want to repeat? Because you eventually will lose out on one attribute which otherwise you would want your student to have. So rather have less COs. It's not that you need to have 6 COs only. Have only 5 COs. So there is no point in repeating a CO or repeating some part of CO. Repetition in terms of verbs can be there. For example, analyze. There can be 2 different set of competencies that they would be able to analyze. Repetition of verb is very much possible. For example, Boyle's theorem and Charles' theorem, something like that. Thevenin's theorem and Norton's theorem to solve circuit diagrams, something like that. You are trying to say? Pollution. See, pollution otherwise is a little broader term. You can have water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution, sound pollution, soil pollution, and different types of pollution. If you are, whereas your solid waste management is a very specific problem. So here you may have 2 different COs. Solid waste can be part of soil pollution and eventually can lead to water pollution also. But taking care of solid waste is slightly a specific problem. That problem can cause different other problems, is a slightly different thing. But here I think student will be able to solve issues of solid waste can be one CO. Or if you have for solid waste, let's say incineration is one solution, we'll be able to design incinerator for solid waste or something. Can be specific CO. That's another point, yes.
I have the 5 CO. That I have the 5 CO. Is this mandatory that the Bloom taxonomy level will be go 1 to 5 or it can be random?
No, that's what I think sir has also asked. You can repeat couple of
No,
levels.
means let the CO1 have the Bloom taxonomy level of 5 and CO5 have the taxonomy level of 1. It can be acceptable?
I mean, it should be very specific and justifiable. If your course structure is like that, that you are starting from evaluating or comparing 2-3 technologies and then going down to understanding something different.
No, actually, generally, the last CO is the key point for the next subject. We are
If it is like that, and if you are able to, I mean, if you are convinced, your colleagues are convinced, then fine. But it's very rare that you start with 5 and come down to.
I just given one example. I mean, if it
I mean,
happens.
if you all are convinced, I mean, if your peer group is convinced, because eventually your peer group has to approve those COs. If your peer group is convinced, yes, that course structure is like that, that you are giving a broader picture that how a problem is solved, to coming down to some fundamentals or foundation of next course or interlinked course. If your structure is like that, then I mean, absolutely not an issue. But you should be convinced and your peer group should be convinced.
Sir, a course in a third year or fourth year, can that course, it can start with the Bloom's level 1 or 2?
It can start, but considering that they must have already requisite, they've already gone through the prerequisite of those courses. If you can avoid them or at least have only one CO at Bloom's level 1 or 2. Remember, to normally we don't use the first level. We normally don't use. You normally start with level 2. Let's understand, and then all other COs can be with apply and analyze.
Okay. So it can start with 2.
It can start. I mean, if it is altogether a new concept, I mean, that your course is addressing. So you can start with that and then go on to increase the levels. Not there. So you start with level 2. Or you can have 2 or 3 COs at level 2 and 3 only in some electives.
Sir, so we have designed one syllabus. In that we are having 5 units.
5 units, okay.
So for a particular unit, can we give more than one COs?
If the unit is long enough, as we were saying, 6 to 8 lectures per CO. If the unit itself is consuming your 13-14 lectures, you can give.
So then for according to CO, we have to use more than one verbs.
But those would be 2 different COs, na? Those would be 2 different attributes that one unit is covering. So that unit itself is almost like a mini module.
Sir,
The same unit, one is related to 2.
Subsumed, yeah. In the higher action verb, or let's say higher level of Bloom's taxonomy, the lower level is subsumed in any case. So you will not start with understanding of so and so and then apply the same principle. When you start with apply the same principle, apply particular principle, understanding that particular principle is already subsumed in that. So for the same attribute, you will not use 2 different levels of Bloom's taxonomy and frame 2 different COs. Sir, anything from online audience? Yeah, or they are all? It's okay.
Sir, if somebody generates the CO from ChatGPT, will there be any consequence for that?
You all should be, if you can reduce your burden,
Okay.
and you all agree and say, because I myself have done that.
Okay.
Mapping is also can be done through ChatGPT. So absolutely no harm. Wherever you can take use of technology and it is giving you. The only problem is Chat GPT may be picking up the CEOs from whatever is available on website or whatever is available on different websites or your internet. So if it is garbage, that you are only picking up something from the garbage. That's the only challenge. But you can always pick it up from there, refine it to your conditions, refine it to your teaching learning process, and use it. But yes, nobody is stopping you from doing that.
Sir, so how many hours are allocated to particular CO or credits?
Credits will come later, but COs, yes,
Hours.
typically 6 to 7
6 to 7 lecture hours,
hours.
for a particular CO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, there is no watertight numbering that is given. It's a broader sense that if some CO is getting covered in 2 or 3 lecture only, so that's not even a course outcome. That can be your module outcome or unit outcome or something like that. So, yeah, now it's, let's say, 15 weeks for a semester. And for a 3 credit, if you are giving 3 lectures, so in any case, it is 45 lectures. So 7 on an average, 7 lectures per CO would mean something like 6 COs.
Sir, one final question, please. So is COPO mapping necessary for strictly lab courses?
Yes,
It is necessary.
it is necessary.
Irrespective of whether it's a part of course, if it's a part of a parent theory course, then the COPOs are common.
Even if it is independent, assessment component or part of your overall course structure, then also you need to have mapping of COs written for lab mapped with the POs and PSOs.
And also, sir, which components? Midterm, end term, or also the internal components? Quizzes, vivas?
Components are not mapped to POs. Assessment components are not mapped to POs. Assessment components are the tools to eventually do your CO attainment calculations. So I'm not sure what you want to ask. Maybe I've misunderstood your question.
Should we include all the components to attainment calculation, or we can skip some of the things like assignment, quizzes, etc.? So this question was raised earlier.
So we'll come to that when we are coming to the attainment calculations.
No, so he said no, we will be discussing that.
We are coming to attainment calculations. How CO attainment. I mean, it's entirely up to you. So even for entire LNMIT, there cannot be one formula. Even for entire BTech electronics also, there cannot be one common formula. Formula you have to devise for your own course. For example, let's say you have a design related course and for some reason you have assignments also. So you may like to skip assignment for a design course, that I want to have a micro project or some course project only as my assessment tool. I'll not have any midterm exam or I'll not take any quizzes, because what quiz you will ask for a design related course. So I'll skip all those things and I'll have only a student making a mini project or designing a given problem, and assessing that only will be my used for my CO attainment calculation.
Out of 100 marks, I have given 20 marks to quiz or 10 marks to anything viva or so. Should I include that in that?
Oh, yes. Then you have to use.
Yeah. And suppose viva, I just ask random questions and I'm not able to make the question paper out of it because it's a random questions we ask orally. So how can I make a question paper and how can I evaluate?
No, don't have to make a question paper for everything.
Okay.
Let's say for your lab evaluation also, there is hardly any question paper.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there is a process, they perform, they take result, they analyze. So there are different aspects that you map to different POs and different aspects that you consider for CO attainment calculations for a lab component.
Yes, sir.
But if your Viva is assessment component, then that assessment component needs to be mapped to the relevant CO.
Okay.
Need not to have a written down quiz or written down question paper.
Okay.
There you are judging different abilities of a student. Of course, communication and other things are definitely there. But then his ability to respond to
So distribution of marks, distribution of COs, how can it be done? Like if I'm
no,
asking,
if there are some marks allocated for Viva,
yes.
let's say for 20, out of 20 marks, 5 marks are allocated for Viva.
Okay.
So then those 5 marks you need to consider for CO attainment calculation.
Okay. And some like if I take lab exam, so I give random experiments to all the students. That was a question raised last time as well. That if somebody is doing a experiment from CO1, somebody is doing experiment from CO2, then and the evaluation, how should I do
So
it?
it is only at the time of examination.
Examination.
But during continuous evaluation, the student is doing all
Yeah,
the,
all the experiments.
experiments.
Yes, yes.
So all the COs are in that case getting covered
Getting about
for all the students.
all the students. Yeah.
So for one is to, it's also there in the choice-based question also.
Choice-based question.
So some student would take up CO2 related question, some student would take up CO3 related question and so on. So something similar for your lab experiment also.
Yes, sir.
So some students are taking CO2 related experiment, some other some other students are taking up CO3 related experiment.
Yes, sir.
But all the students are taking all the experiments as part of continuous evaluation.
So should I like equally divided like among students? It's not getting clear that suppose I have given 20 marks and out of 20 marks, 20 students, 5 are taking from CO1, 5 are taking from CO2, 5 are taking from CO3, 5 are taking from CO4.
Okay, let's make it little simpler. If I have understood your question properly, your lab exam has, your lab component has 100 marks.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So all the students are doing all the experiments, and let's say you are devoting 50 marks for that as part of the continuous evaluation.
Yes.
Lab being a component of continuous evaluation, ideally should have more component given for continuous evaluation. Let's say 70-30. So for 70 marks, it's pretty common for all students.
Pretty clear that you are all the students are covering all the CU.
All the for 30% of marks,
exam.
for 30% of marks, which is your end term exam, let's say out of 60 students, 5 are working on CO1, 5 are working on CO2, and so on and so forth. So that's perfectly fine. So for 5 students, CO1 will have more weightage. For other 5 students, CO2 will have more weightage.
Okay.
That's the only difference.
So I have to make a question paper accordingly, and I have to tell them that these 5 students did from CO1 and they got these much marks.
Yeah.
These 5 students did from CO2, they got these much marks, and accordingly I attain that based on that.
No, you don't have to tell it to anybody. When your CO attainment calculation is being done, it will automatically give you that CO1 attainment is like this. For continuous evaluation component, it will be done separately. For end term exam, it will be done separately. And then you will take the fractional
fractional part of it.
Fractional
so
part
it
of
is
it
like giving a choice-based questions, but if say question 1 has 5 choices, okay, and all 5 choices are from different COs.
It is something like this.
Yeah, student can choose any one of them.
It is something like this.
Something like this. Okay.
So let's say 5 students are doing experiment from CO1. So the CO attainment in your end term for 5 students for CO1 will be calculated separately.
Separately.
It will not be out of 60 student.
All right. And then out of 60 total fraction part will be taken. Yeah.
And then the fractional
of all the students will be calculated and final outcome will be gone. Yes. Okay.
We calculate internal marks and external marks and then the final marks. So final marks, we can map for the CO attainments that will have all the COs.
No, I think the question was that in the lab exam, at least the end exam for the lab course, some students take up one particular experiment, and that experiment is mapped to, let's say, CO1. So only out of a batch of 60, only 10 students, let's say, are doing experiment mapped to CO1. What about other students? So the attainment you will calculate only for those 10 students who are taking experiment of
first
CO1.
experiment.
Yeah. Likewise, for other 10 students, CO2, other 10 students, CO3, and so on. But your final exam is contributing only to, let's say, 30% of your total marks. And 70% marks are attributed to continuous evaluation. And continuous evaluation, all the students are doing all the experiments.
So I was just asking, can we not divide the final, for example, final exam is one set of the examination and the internal marks are the continuous evaluation marks.
Yeah.
So eventually when we are doing the mapping, this attainment, that is like the final marks got by the student throughout the semester.
Yes.
And if we fill out those during the attainment process, so that will have all the COs, like all the internal marks will be coming, components will be coming from all the COs.
Yeah. So for internal, which is, let's say, contributing to 70% of the total marks.
So cannot we do the combined thing for lab marks, only for the labs?
The only difference is, let's say only 10 students are doing it for CO1 and other 10 are doing it for CO2 and other 10 are doing it for CO3 and so on. So combining them all together will be different, will be difficult. Whereas internal, all students are doing same and there is a certain percentage of internal in your overall calculation. So use that percentage. For end-term exam, whatever percentage you have decided, use that percentage only for that CO attainment calculation and then add it to your internal CO attainment, the particular CO attainment.
Sir, I have one more question. For example, there is a less credit course, like one credit course is there and it has only 15 lectures for a credit course. So how many minimum COs should be there? Like
7
as per
going
the
per CO, so let's say 2 COs only.
only 2 COs should be there.
Yes. See, in otherwise 14-hour, I mean, face-to-face interaction, how many COs we can address or how many skills your students will be able to acquire? Only 1 or 2.
Okay.
Max 3, but surely not beyond 3. So it's again given by NBA that how many POs are there for a postgraduate program. So they can refer it to NBA website. And as I was saying during our discussion, that whatever POs you want to take, POs you have to take, please refer it from NBA website only. Because different even regulatory bodies or agencies have slight variation of POs given by them. But for all practical purposes, please take the POs word by word given by NBA. So for PG also, NBA has given the POs.
Sir.
So I think let's move. And if there is any specific question, it's already 11. We have not come to even attainment calculation. So maybe some of your queries will get addressed when we do the attainment calculation, or during tea break, we'll have a specific discussion. So mapping, as again, I was saying, there is no fixed formula how you map your COs with POs, and that's the most tricky part. But please don't worry whether your mapping is right or wrong. Some common observations: please don't map all COs with all POs. First of all, that's disastrous, because one CO or one skill cannot actually address all the graduate attributes. कोई उसको फांसी नहीं चढ़ाने वाला, तो अपनी एनर्जी उसमें मत लगाइए. The auditor will come and have certain observation, that's it. So let's not spend your all energies in changing somebody's perception. But I mean, you also see how one particular course attribute can address to ethics, teamwork, communication, society. you are going to have a major discussion with your NBA evaluators on that, and they'll have a perception that the basic understanding of OBE is little less amongst faculty members. So I'm not contexting on that. So one can have, as an evaluator, one will wear different hat. As a professor, one would wear different hat. So as I was saying, it's absolutely, I mean, I'm not saying fine, but let's not spend our energies on one such case. Okay, so we typically map the COs with POs with 3 levels, low level, medium, and strong. And we give a numeral 1, 2, 3 for that. When I go for audit, I have seen in many cases, faculty members just put a tick mark that it is mapped with a PO. So please don't put just a tick mark. Please give a numeral value to the mapping, whether it is strong mapping, medium mapping, or low mapping. And the numerals given for that is 3 to 1. So give a numeral value because that would have some significance later on. Yes, yes. You should give justification of mapping. So just one way of doing this mapping. Let's say we have. I mean, you can devise your own correlation factor and strength of correlation given for that factor. Let's say for this example, you take that if the correlation is less than 25%, so we'll say that there is no correlation between CO and PO. If the correlation is like this, so we can say that there is a low correlation and so on. So let's take that as a very raw way of carrying out the mapping. So for example, let's say your CO states that the student will explore and interpret characteristics of functions using graphs, tables, simple algebraic technique. And there is this PO1, which you all know, it's about knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering, fundamental to solve complex engineering problem. So some keywords, some key skills you pick up from the CO statement. You can have those skill set on one side. And the key terms from the PO statement, let's say mathematics, science, engineering, fundamental, and so on, and see that if there is a correlation amongst them. And then if there is a correlation, everything is getting correlated, you can give it that it's a 100% correlation, and you can give it a strength of 3. It's a strongly correlated. Similarly, for second PO, again, it's pretty much used there. So it's a 100% correlation. Now, let's say if it is PO4, which talks about complex engineering problem. So there you will find that the basic knowledge of graphs, tables, and simple algebraic technique will not actually solve my entire problem of complex engineering problem. So that knowledge alone will not be able to equip the student in solving the complex engineering problem of that particular discipline. So here you can see that the correlation is little weak. So you can give it 1 or 2 strength correlation. And similarly, let's say PO8, which talks about ethics. So typically, I mean, ethics is good to have, but knowledge of graphs and tables and basic algebra will not make a student ethical student. So if you feel, you can give it a low correlation. But data student is supposed to get it from somewhere, no? Data set itself, okay. I mean, if you feel that there is some, you can give it a low correlation. Here, So CO1, we have been discussing functions, graphs, tables, algebra. CO1, na? It's from the same CO statement. Yes, for you can take different COs and pick up the keywords or key skill sets in that CO1, in that particular CO, and see what are the attributes expected in the particular PO, and see if there is a correlation or not. Yeah, I mean, it's a very basic way of doing it. A little more systematic way of doing it is given by AICTE. You can refer it from AICTE website, wherein for all the POs they have given the competency that the student should be able to demonstrate. And for all these competencies, they have given the performance indicators. So some institutions I have seen along with their question paper, they not only mention the relevant CO, but they also mention the Bloom's taxonomy level and the performance indicator, that this particular question actually addresses these performance indicators. So, AICTE, this particular document on AICTE website gives it for all the POs. So it makes your life actually very simple. So you can pick up these performance indicators and see that whether these skill set identified in your CO statement are related to these performance indicators or not. And based on the kind of mapping with these performance indicators and skill set, based on the percentage of mapping, you can again decide whether the correlation is strong, medium, or low. Oh, yes. That's the most scientific way of doing it if they can use it, because they are supposed to make a justification table. So they can say that these are the performance indicators for this particular competency, and there are 3 competency for a particular PO. And these performance indicators are actually getting covered in my CO statements. This is just a reference line. So there are 4 skill set, but it's not getting mapped with any of the PO attribute. Like in this case, I mean, 2 functions are related, so it's written as 1/4. No, don't go by actual line, but just it's indicating that I mean, 2 attributes are mapped with these PO attributes. Yes. By 3, so 0.75. Yes. So these are attributes picked up from the POs. I mean, if anyone or more than one is mapped to any one of these, okay, you can write one more bullet. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very indicative and little raw way of doing it. So for a particular PO, that course or that particular course outcome is very strongly mapped. But for other POs, it may not be mapped at all. So for one PO, it has a correlation of 3, but with others, it's no correlation. No, with 1 or 2 other POs, if you use this performance indicator tool, which is given by AICTE, if you feel that there are some other performance indicator related to a particular PO and there is some reflection of that, because that mathematical modeling that you are doing is for a designing something. So PO4, which is around designing a complex engineering problem, so it can be related to that also. And when you are doing mathematical modeling, you are obviously using basic science, basic computing tools. Because if you look at PO1, the revised PO1, it has added the computing ability. So those abilities also are required, and they actually are being used in your mathematical modeling. So whether it is engineering science, unless and until a student has the understanding of particular engineering science, he will not be able to model it. Unless and until a student has strong ability of using mathematical functions, student will not be able to model it. Similarly, computing abilities. So PO1, PO2, PO4, you can very strongly map. So best way of doing it is to use these performance indicators, because when you look at the performance indicator for your particular case, you will find that it talks about apply mathematical technique. It will also talk about fundamental engineering concepts. It will also talk about applying computing techniques.
So,
So all
as a
those
continuation of that, there's one more question which is coming online, is that some experts say that a CEO should not have 2 or more action verbs. I
Yes.
think this is what we are saying. So, when we say various action verbs there, then is that a problem that this is how we should not be writing down the COs
Action verb where?
in COs,
No.
in writing down the COs?
So action verb means, let's say, will be able to apply concepts of basic science, engineering, and computing ability to design a mathematical model for a given problem. So action verb is only apply.
Apply.
Other indicators are basic science, engineering principles, and computing ability. So for the same thing, if you are designing another CO, he will have understanding of basic mathematical concepts, basic engineering concepts, and basic computing concepts. And another CO is apply the same things. So then there is no point in having those two different COs which are attributed to same abilities. There, use the higher verb, apply. So apply the concepts of mathematics, basic engineering, and computing ability, and computing whatever you want to call it, to design a mathematical model. So don't have one CO for understanding these concepts and another CO for applying these concepts. No issues.
To understand and implement the flow measurement instrument. Let's take this PO1. Okay, so it has the construction, it has a design, it has a fundamental mathematical modeling, and it also has the numericals based on that. So based on this PO1, if I say apply the knowledge of mathematical, science, engineering fundamentals, and engineering specialization on the solution of complex engineering problem. So it satisfies most of this PO1, right? Similarly, I also have the another POs where it also satisfies most of this work.
Sure.
So I can use 3 for all these POs, or only one will be having the 3?
No, you can. I mean, if you remember, I said initially, as far as possible, your COs should definitely be addressing 2 or more POs. Maybe in different strength, maybe in different strength of correlation, but very rarely you will have one CO mapped to only one PO.
Okay.
One CO may be mapped with 2, 3, or 4, 5 POs.
Okay, the philosophy is actually clear. I am looking from the auditor point of view. Let's say I say it is mapped to 3. So are they looking for some quantization table somewhere?
Justification, somebody was asked whether
If I can justify that this is how it is able to do it.
Fine.
If should be some written mathematical formula
No,
to
nothing,
justify that.
nothing.
So it is up to, but it's a very subjective thing to the
That's what
instructor, no?
initially it will be little subjective.
So-
There is no mathematical formula
I
given
was,
for
I
mapping.
was, I was pretty much confused when you show the 1/4, 2/4.
No, that I said is for a very layman kind of
Understanding for understanding purpose.
yes,
It should be instructor specific and they should be able
It is actually instructor specific, and as instructor, when you map them, have another column
Okay.
of justification.
Thank you.
Of justification.
So it says that there are two different verbs which are being used there.
These are just example. These are just example. Let's not take them word by word.
Okay, so Lakshmi Narayanji, your query is taken care. And,
Yeah, it has
is-
to be one action verb. Okay, this we leave. So typically, this is how your course articulation matrix would eventually look like, wherein you have all the COs written down on one side and POs and PSOs on other side. And they are mapped, different COs are mapped with different POs and PSOs with different correlation strength. It is good that at the end of the table, you take an average of mapping strength of the course with different POs, because this would be used in your program articulation metrics. So for each course, you make a course articulation matrix, and combining all these course articulation metrics, eventually you will get the program articulation matrix, which would look something like this, wherein all the courses are written. On one side, you can have course codes also, and then all the POs and PSOs on other side. And that average value which we have computed in the course articulation matrix, like this 1.2, 2.6, and so on. So those average values you would use here in these boxes or in these fields or cells to put these values. Those average values of your for that particular course map to the various POs and PSOs, the average values of those. This you all know, so we will not spend time here. Assessment process, we can come straight away to. Average, simple average. No, simple average. Let's say if there are 3, 3, 3, and 1, and another 3. So it's 12 and 1, 13. 13 divided by 5 would be 2.6. 5 with whatever elements it is mapped. So for example, let's say this particular PO, only 1 is mapped, so 1 divided by 1. No. He may be saying something else. We'll come to that also. He may be trying to say something else. That is for PO. When we'll do PO attainment calculation, there you can have both ways of doing the PO attainment calculation. So we'll come to that. I mean, just ask the, all the colleagues here also, whether they are bored and they want to take 10 minutes break. अच्छा फिर तो ठीक है. So what we will do is, because I want to touch on the new aspects of the SAR as well. Maybe after the break, should I start with that and come back to attainment calculations? Because attainment calculations is must. So we'll come to attainment calculations immediately after the tea break. So maybe 15.
I think it should be okay with all of us because a lot of things, interesting things are being discussed which we are not aware of. So if let's say we stretch it a little bit beyond like 115 or so, I think
because
we all should be okay with
for me, the cutoff time would be 1:30
okay.
because after that, I have to
No,
rush back.
I
So, yeah.
understand. Right. Yes.
So maximum limit of stretching this session would be 1:30.
Okay, 130. I don't know how much.
115.
Like to, yes, but I think these are the things which we all of us are
Sure. So
interested in knowing.
sure. So we'll take 15 minutes break, and after the break, we'll start with attainment.
11:40. We are starting back again.
Yeah, attainment calculations will start.
Okay, online participants. So we are taking a short break of 15 minutes. 11:40. We'll be starting back again. Thank you so much for joining us. We are starting back again at 11:40. Please be connected. Thank you so much. Welcome back after the tea break. Now we'll be starting the session or continuing the session rather. Whatever discussion we were having before the break, we'll continue with that. And then Professor Kamal will be starting the next session just after that. Thank you so much for joining. We are starting back again. Thank you, Professor Kamal. We'll start.
Acha, okay. Okay, so welcome back for this session. So just a quick recap. Morning we discussed on the different terms that invariably we use in outcome-based education, and specifically with reference to NBA. Vision, mission, of course, are there. Then we talked about PEOs, and there is a process we discussed briefly that how we should write vision, mission, and PEOs. When I'm saying process, idea is that you should involve all your internal and as much as possible external stakeholders in writing or finalizing your vision, mission, and POs, and should be able to demonstrate that you have followed that process. So that we discussed, and we also said that POs can be around 3 to 5, let's say 3, and what all broader competencies POs should reflect on. We also discussed that POs is eventually for your alumni who have graduated 3-4 years back, that they are demonstrating these abilities in their work space. We also discussed that POs are sacrosanct and they have been picked up from NBA. And POs are different for undergraduate engineering program, PG engineering program, PG management program, and so on. But the POs we should pick up from NBA only, which have been devised as per Washington Accord graduate attributes. We also discussed that COs, how broadly we should write COs. Typically, a CO should be covering 6 to 8 lectures, should start with some action verb, should be specific, measurable, achievable, and can be done, I mean, realistic and can be done in some given time frame, can be achieved in some given time frame. We also discussed a very raw way of mapping COs with POs. And as we discussed that this mapping is largely lies with the instructor and of course the peer group, that how they want to map it and with what strength. We also discussed that they actually should be mapped in some given numerals, 1, 2, or 3, and should not be just tick marked. So I think broadly we discussed up to that, and we also said that yes, AICT has given a very beautiful framework wherein all the POs have been broken down into different competencies, and then competencies have been broken down into the performance indicators. So we can pick up some reference from that, and that would help us in making our CO-PO mapping a little easy, and justification also would have some basis that some reference has been taken from that document. So that up till that point we have discussed before the tea break. And also one more disclaimer again that as I was saying at the beginning, different speakers would have different experience and different understanding of various aspects of OB and NBA requirement. So there can always be some variation in what we are saying, but eventually it lies on your understanding that what suits you in the given framework should not be entirely out of the context, but yes, how you understand the whole philosophy and how you implement it. So that onus lies on individual instructor and institute. There can always be some variation, the way different OB or different NBA evaluators, they perceive particular way of writing COs, particular way of mapping COs with POs, or particular way of doing the CO attainment calculations. So there can always be some variations in the understanding. Now we'll resume this session with COPO attainment calculations, or how do we do it. So I'll skip some these slides, which you can just refer a little later. Okay, so there are certain assessment tools which we use otherwise also in our as part of the overall assessment process, which could be your midterm and end-term exam for sure. You would have home assignments, project works, viva, seminar, some feedbacks, and so on. But it will be a good practice if you can map your COs with different assessment tools. That, for example, in this table, let's say CO4 would be assessed through assignments, test, and NSEM exam. CO6 would be assessed through a test or a quiz and end-term exam. So it's a good practice that for your course, when you have finalized your COs, you map your COs with corresponding assessment tools. Now, there was a question during the tea break, whether should we consider assignment quizzes for this attainment calculations or not. If you see how these assignments and test quizzes and then eventually midterm and end-term are spread across the semester, typically you take your assignment and quiz maybe after 3 or 4 weeks of the session, wherein largely your CO1 and CO2 are covered. Midterm you would take after about 6 weeks or so, or between 6 to 8 weeks. That is the time till your CO3 and some part of CO4 are covered. So largely, if you see in your test and quiz, you lay, especially test quiz 1 or assignment 1, you lay more emphasis on CO1 and CO2. And when it comes to your mid-sem, it is slightly more skewed towards CO2 and CO3 and some weightage on CO1. Similarly, when you move on to your end-sem exam, your largely weightage gets shifted to CO4, 5, and 6, with very less weightage to CO3 and very, very less or no weightage given to CO1 and CO2. So if you only consider your midterm and end-term evaluation process for CO attainment calculation, you are likely to miss out on CO1 and CO2 judiciously. So very less weightage you would be attributing in mid-sem and end-sem on your CO1 and CO2. And why I'm saying so, this is your today's midterm question paper on digital system, wherein you have covered 2 COs, CO1 and CO2. CO1 is covered for marks out of 30, that is 23% weightage is given to CO1 and 76% weightage is given to CO2. So if you are considering only midterm and end term, you are likely to evaluate your CO1 for very less marks. So overall attainment calculation would not be justifiable with this kind of marks breakage. So that's why it is very important that you consider all your evaluation components for your attainment calculations, whether it is test quiz or midterm or post midterm test quiz. Because in your first test quiz or assignment, you are likely to cover CO1. So in the overall scheme of marks distribution, you are likely to get a pretty balanced marks distribution for all the COs. So it is important that you consider all the evaluation components for attainment calculations. Yeah. We will come to that. We'll come to that. No, so if you have 6 COs, so it's not that it has to be perfectly 17, 18% for all COs. There is always possibility of some variation, but it should also not so happen that CO1 you are assessing for only 5% marks and CO4 you are assessing for 30% marks or vice versa. So it's very important. That's what evaluators also see, that how your marks distribution is there and how this marks distribution is corresponding to different COs. It's just for illustration. Don't read it word by word. It is only for illustration. The point of showing this table is that it is good practice that you have all your course outcome mapped to the different evaluation schemes that you have. That's it. Please don't refer that CO1 is mapped to all evaluation components or not. But it is evaluated there also with less weight. Okay, if I have understood your question correctly, in your end sem exam, let's say all the COs are getting addressed, but out of 100 marks of your end sem, you may be giving 50 marks here, 30 marks here, and maybe 5 or 2 to 3% marks for lower end COs. While all the COs are getting mapped to that particular exam, but the weightage of marks for different COs may vary, and which actually will vary or which actually should vary. If in your end sem exam also, if you are giving 30% weightage to your CO1, then when will you assess CO5 and 6? So marks distribution will vary, and actually it should vary. That is what I was trying to say when I picked up this mid-sem exam example, wherein CO1 has been given 23% weightage and CO2 has been given 77% weightage. So CO1 has been given less weightage. Why? Because in your test 1, quiz 1 or assignment 1, you might have given more weightage to CO1. So in your overall scheme of evaluation, they would eventually get everything. Okay. So when we start progressing for attainment calculations, so it is important to set the targets. It is important to set the targets of attainment for particular course. Now, attainment targets are set with respect to two variables: number or percentage of students and number or percentage of marks. For example, if I say my 70% student should secure at least 60% marks, then I will consider it as, let's say attained at low level. 75% students securing 60% marks, I'll say it is at least moderately attained. So some such targets you will have to frame. And how to frame these targets? One good practice is, and it is given in NBA manual also, that you pick up the average marks in the previous year and figure out that what percentage of students scored above that level, and you can set it as level 1. For example, let's say in a course last year, there were 60 students and the average marks scored were 55%. And 60% scored above the average marks. So 60% students securing 55% marks can be level 1 of your CO attainment level for that course. And so on and so forth. So you can go on increasing the percentage of students securing those marks, or keeping the same percentage but increasing the percentage of marks can be another way of writing your CO attainment targets. I hope this is clear. It's not a big deal, and I believe you, at least at LNM IIT, are practicing it already. Yes, sir. For a course, at least you will have a broader idea that in this course, this is the typical performance of a student. So changing one CO or some part of CO will not make a drastic change in the overall performance of a student in that course. So to start with, you can still continue to use the same marks. Now, if your course is altogether new, you don't have any past history, then your average performance of students in general, you can take as a reference point. That BTech Electronics second year, the average performance is like this. On an average, the marks is for BTech Electronics second year batch was average marks were 60% and close to 50% students got about 60% marks. So that can be my starting range of target for that particular course which has no past history.
I have stated earlier also, we have lab and the theory. Both are different, separately dealt with the students
Earlier.
But in the new curriculum or for new students, they are now come together. So the way we are writing the COs, they are entirely different now. 4 or 5 COs, whatever the number is. Okay. So the overall course in some sense is new, or in some sense it is old course only. So now taking the reference from the previous one, because when lab is a part of the course, automatically the number of percentage which a student get will
slightly higher.
Yes, will be higher in this year. So how will take that as a reference?
As I've said, heavens are not going to fall. Even if you are taking the theory course performance for the benchmark for setting the target, that still is okay. So it's a continuous evolving process. You wanted to start at 55 level, hypothetically, and you are starting at 50 level, or you are starting at 60 level, will not make much changes.
Which evaluate us.
They will also not worry too much about whether you took an average of theory separately, practical separately, then put them together and figure out a new average. And based on that new average, you have set the target. Actually, that should be the ideal way. But even if you are not doing it and taking only theory as a reference for setting the target, you can always say the same apprehension which you just now told me. No. As long as you are you have a way of deciding the target, that's absolutely fine. It's always a good practice, whatever such changes are there in the system. And when you are doing with the concurrence of your peers, it's always a good practice to show it as a process. Otherwise, it will look that something hypothetical, some number has come. But that number has come through a process is always a good practice.
The whole process is being designed or guided to us once you change the curriculum, and that is applicable for 3 years. So for 3 years, this NB accreditation is there, right? So once you change the means for a single accreditation, you cannot or we should not go for the 2 curriculum.
They're not necessary. Many affiliating universities, they have changed quite frequently in the recent past.
Criteria and the weightage, that is not exactly matched. Attainment will be different in that case.
Again, as I've said, it shows your relative quality improvement. Not necessary that you continue to remain with the same process, same syllabus, same way of evaluation, same level of evaluation all throughout your next 5-6 years. That's absolutely not the idea. And also when you do the program attainment calculations, it is not for one particular batch. It is for that particular year. And for that particular year, all your such variables are more or less same. Your students are same, your curriculum is same, your evaluation method is same, your facilities are same. So for that particular year, nothing much has changed. It's more or less static. For a particular course also, if there have been any revision, but it's part of the overall program. So when it leads to your program attainment calculations, there will be very fractional difference. And that fractional difference actually does not bother anybody.
when we write the number, here n-1, n-2. Now in n we have a different curriculum. n-1 we have a different curriculum. Now will there be different?
So when you have curriculum change, and especially when NEP was introduced and gradually some instructions came from UGC, in last 2-3 years there have been some major changes year on year. But if you look at broadly, your core courses earlier were also contributing to 55 to 60% of total program structure. Now also your core courses are contributing pretty much the same. So when you look at the program as such, for a particular course, there may be some difference in you don't have any past history of attainment calculation. Now there is a new course, so you start afresh deciding the benchmarks and so on, deciding the target levels of attainment and so on. So that's for a particular course. When you look at the overall program level attainment, for a program, there are, let's say, 60 to 70 courses contributing to a program. And some changes in 5-6 courses is hardly a fractional change in overall structure of the program and overall program attainment calculations which you had made previously. I don't know whether I've been able to answer you. If you are looking for a very specific answer, that I have changed my course from particular structure and 70% course has been revised completely, treat it as a new course, set the benchmarks new, afresh. As I was just saying, maybe take some reference of a similar course, students' performance in the similar course previously, and take that as benchmark to set the target for this new course. If there is only fractional change in, I mean very less change in your course syllabus for a particular course, 10, 15, 20%, or 1 or 2 COs only have been changed, that will not make much difference in overall performance of the students who have studied from the previous syllabus or those who are studying in the new syllabus. You can still take the student performance of the previous course as benchmark to set your targets for this year. So that's absolutely okay. If there is a major change in the course, set the new targets. If there is a very less change, 10-15%, based on the performance of the previous course, you can set the targets. Is that what you wanted to ask, or? Acha, okay, that will be good. Yes, sir. You can say, you can set, but technically it will not make much difference. But setting such low target does not give a very good impression with the evaluators. But you can always have your own justification why you are setting such low targets.
Last 2 years, I am having in my course, the average marks is just 40%.
I know, because when I was discussing with the team last year, we have come across this issue. And so technically, as a process of CO attainment calculation and other things, it does not make any difference. It's perfectly fine to set the target at 40%, but it does not leave a very good impression with the externals. That's it. And that not so good impression will not affect your marks. But then the best way is to see, best way, I think, no, you continue to use percentage only. Don't use percentile. Because it's then with.
60 marks in my course.
Don't worry. Whatever is the actual status, design your targets accordingly. See, idea is not to show that our attainments are very good or our targets are very high, very stiff.
We are giving the grades. The 60% I am giving. But as per this table,
no, this.
60% marks.
This percentage of marks and percentage of students securing those marks is just for the purpose of illustration only. So please don't use it as some reference. I've understood. So even if your targets are at low percentage, that's absolutely fine. If your targets are not attained, that's even better. So don't worry that your objective is to attain the CO targets and say that we have attained everything. The idea is to gradually show improvement in your attainment levels. It's a continuous quality improvement process.
Target level for internal assessment and end semester, should they be same?
They can be different also,
They
and
can
it's
be
a good practice if you have a different
different targets.
Even I've seen in some cases where targets are different for assignment and targets are different for test and quizzes also. So Corona was exception. So everybody understood that Corona was exception. But now, when we are talking today, so no batch is affected by Corona. So last 3 years are all post-Corona batches. See, when your target is, when your attainments are decreasing, that's what NBA requires, that you take some corrective actions. And then those corrective actions should lead to improvement of your performance. If you are only saying that my attainment levels are reducing, but there is no visible action taken, then of course it will not be taken in a very good. So you'll have to say, you have to demonstrate that what corrective actions you have taken, and in spite of that, it's not improving. So that means you may try to think that I'll have some pre-course, or I may need to focus on some prerequisites of that course, or I may need to supplement that course with some online material or some MOOCs or something, or I may need to increase the number of contact hours for that course. So some such solution you will have to figure out. Okay, so moving on. I think it is almost the same thing. So let's say this is an example that we are taking for our subsequent calculations. These are the attainment levels. Let's say for a particular end term exam, there are 9 questions, and all these 9 questions are addressing to different COs, CO1, 3, 1, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, and so on. And the attainment levels based on this benchmark, or based on this target level, are these 3, 3, 2, 2, and so on. So this is a very basic way of telling you how to calculate the attainment. Now, for example, CO1 is addressed through these 2 questions, 1 and 3, and the attainment levels are 3 and 2, so the average is 2.5. So through end sem exam, attainment level of CO1 is 2.5, and so on and so forth. And the overall attainment of this particular course, which is 202, is the average of all these attainments, which is 2.6. Now, average attainment level is also important, because this we will be using for PO attainment calculations. This was the simplest example that I could take, so I have taken that, wherein it is talking about the end term exam, 9 questions, different questions attributing to different COs. Based on the benchmark that we have discussed, these benchmarks, we have figured out that these are the attainment levels of different questions. One way is to calculate the attainment levels question wise. Another way is to calculate the total marks obtained for the relevant COs. In this case, question 1 and 3, since they both are addressing CO1. calculating the total marks and then using the previous this previous benchmark levels, then figure out the attainment level. So that's what I'm saying. The other option is to total up the marks secured in both those questions. And you know the maximum marks is 15. You know the scored marks varying from 5 to 15. Figure out the percentage of threshold. Threshold is 70% marks. So 70% of 15 is whatever, 10.5 or whatever. And then see how many students secured more than 10.5. Better way. So that's why I said it's the simplest way of, very raw way of telling how to calculate it. The basic guideline, if the targets are achieved, so increase the target. Targets are achieved means if the targets in all COs you have attained 3 as attainment level, so increase the target. Target, when you are increasing, change only one variable, either the percentage of marks or percentage of students securing above those marks. Don't change both the variables. And also in setting up the target, please keep it in mind that one variable is constant and you are only changing the another variable corresponding to the different levels of target. For example, in this example, this is constant, percentage of marks is constant, and we are only varying the percentage of student securing more than those percentage of marks corresponding to different level. Okay, so actually, this is also pretty much the same. So if you allow me, I can skip it. This is for internal assessment. Question number 1 is for 12 marks. I mean, total is for 20 marks. Question 1 is for 12. Question 2 is for 8. So this is the same target. So probably, I think this is the same simple calculation, so I can skip it. Okay, so once you separately calculate the attainment levels for your internals and end-term exam, you know for your university exam system that what weightage you give to your internals and what weightage you give to your externals. So using the same weightage, then for each CO, you compute the final value. Let's say in this example, I have taken 50% weightage to end-sem and 50% weightage to internal. Midterm is also considered as part of internal, so use it there as such. So let's say attainment value for the particular course, for the average value of CO in end-term attainment calculation was 2.6, and in internal evaluation it was 1.8. So taking 50% each of both, so total becomes 2.2. So that becomes your attainment value for this particular course. So hope you all are with me on this. It's clear, it's understood. 50% weightage I have just taken for reference as an example. In your case, whatever is the weightage spread between end term and midterm, use that percentage and then compute the overall attainment for that particular course. So this, when we compute it this way, this is called direct attainment. There is another component called indirect attainment, which is optional. Universities can adopt it. Many universities actually adopt it. That is part of indirect attainment, which is your course exit survey, wherein from the students who have completed that course, you have asked based on the 4 or 5 or 6 COs, how do they feel they have attained those abilities or not? Then they rate you on 1, 2, 3. Not rate you, rate their ability to perform those skills on 1, 2, 3, or maybe 0, that they have not at all acquired that skill, or they have just acquired that skill, they have decently acquired that skill, they are very strong in that skill. So you can explain them the process of taking that survey, and through the survey also you can assess their feedback or their understanding of how different attributes have been attained by them, and use some fraction of that in calculating overall course outcome attainment. Typical breakup for that is 80% direct and 20% indirect. 80% through these end-term, internals, and so on, and 20% through the survey. Survey is not mandatory. Survey is optional. My recommendation to all affiliating colleges, if they are on online mode, they should not use indirect attainment for their overall CO attainment calculations. But autonomous colleges and universities can use it. It's optional. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, so I'll skip it. This is how typical composite score sheet sometime can look like. This is only referring to internal evaluation because everything I could not put together on one slide. So I thought it would create confusion. So only internal part I have used here. For example, let's say in a sessional, this particular example, there are 3 tests. You can call it test and quiz. So let's say these are tests, and these are 4 assignments in this particular case. Test 1 is addressing to CO1 and 2. Likewise, test 2 is addressing to CO2 and 3, and so on. And similarly, assignments are addressing to these particular COs correspondingly. These are maximum marks allocated to these different tests or assignments. You have different students and their scores here. Now, as you can see, CO2 have been addressed in sessional test 1 and test 2 also. So as we were discussing earlier, incidentally here the weightage is same, but CO3, if you see, the weightage is different. So best way is to address the maximum marks of COs being addressed in different tests, put them somewhere here, combining there, and equate them to 100%. And whatever marks students have scored in these different COs, let's say CO2 put together 10 plus 15, 6 plus 10, 10 plus 14, and so on, and convert them into percentage. I think it's simple. On a table, it looks a little complicated, but it's simple. And then see that as per your threshold, let's say if it is 50% in the test was your threshold, how many students actually scored more than that threshold, percentage of those students. And based on your target level, you can say whether the attainment level is 3, 2, or 1, or 0, there is no attainment at all. And then based on what weightage you give to your internals, you multiply it by that fraction. This attainment level, you multiply it by that fraction. And then compute the overall internal attainment through test and quizzes, through assignments. Again, you can combine them here. Similarly, you will have this sheet extended for your end-term exam as well. Is it clear, or do I need to? I'll leave it with you for 1 or 2 minutes. You please see it. There are any questions or any doubt, or again, this way of calculating CO attainment is not mandatory every time. You can devise your own sheet, but it is expected that each question, whether it is part of your test, quiz, or assignment, is mapped to the corresponding CO. Obviously, each question of your midterm and end-term question should be mapped to the CO. For all COs in these components, you can put their marks together, maximum marks together. You can put the students' secured marks together for the corresponding CO, and then see that what percentage of students have crossed the threshold value, and based on what percentage of students have crossed the threshold value, you can assign 0, 1, 2, or 3 as your attainment values or attainment levels. वो उसमें भी एंड टर्म वाला नहीं डाला था, सो वो एंड टर्म का उसने 0 पिक करके यहाँ पे 0 डाल दिया. इट वाज एक्सेल शीट विद द फॉर्मूला, सो इसलिए उसने उसको 0 डाल दिया.
Sir, two online questions.
हाँ जी.
One is Dr. Sundar Murthy. For university exams, there is no CO-wise marks. Only overall marks are given.
So looks like he's from an affiliating college.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
In such cases, they can again have that benchmark overall. That let's say in overall university NSEM exam, if the threshold value of a student's performance is, let's say, 50%, and then percentage of students securing more than 50%, he has again devised some value, let's say 60% scoring, 50% is level 1, 65% students securing 50% is level 2, and so on. So that attainment value he will use for all COs, which are actually calculated through internal assessment. For end terms, 70% or 60% weightage, whatever in his case. So that weightage for all the results put together, he will take and use it for overall computation for respective CO. So actually it is the CO computation in such cases is through internals only.
Yes.
And that's why I have suggested that in such cases, they should not go for indirect assessment.
Right. And one more question is from Dr. Lakshmi. How to identify the curricular gap?
Okay, that's another question. Maybe it will be good if I address it in the new way of writing the SAR for Tier 1 colleges. It is somewhat addressed there.
And one recently it came, what is the weightage to be given for indirect assessment in calculating attainments?
CO attainment, as I've said initially, if it is a university or an autonomous system, you can give 20% weightage, 15 to 20% weightage.
For the indirect.
And if it is affiliating college, they should avoid it.
Okay.
And it is not mandatory that the indirect assessment has to be done at course level. It is mandatory at program level, but not mandatory at
For the
course level. So let's say first level was okay, let's say first level was 60% students should secure 60% marks. In that particular CO for internal, less than 60% students must have secured 60% marks. So that's why 0. But that percentage out of the total strength was less. Let's say total strength was 50 and only 5 have secured. So only 10% student secured more than the threshold value of marks. So that's why 0. So this is one way of tabulating your result. And I think nowadays lots of softwares are there. Otherwise, best way is to have your own Excel sheet for it. You can always continue to modify it. But otherwise, today, a lot of softwares are already available, which can, simply calculate it for you. Whether you use Excel sheet or any software for computation, absolutely, evaluators have no objection to that. It minimizes your day-to-day computational work. They expect is you should know the process. you should know the process of CO attainment calculations. Whether you do it on an Excel sheet or on a software is immaterial, but you should know the process. Okay, PO attainment, I think I'll straight away go to sum table. Let's say this is sum attainment. You can do some surveys, program exit survey from students. You can take some feedback, but this is mandatory. Program exit survey is mandatory. These are optionals. If you take it, it is good. If you don't take it, okay. But this is mandatory program exit survey. And indirect assessment at program outcome attainment level is mandatory. At course outcome attainment level, it is not mandatory, it is optional. But at program outcome attainment level, it is mandatory. And in that mandate, program exit survey from your existing student is also mandatory. Rest are optional. Okay, so this is sum attainment through direct and indirect assessment. Now, how to quantify the student exit survey? You can design your feedback form in such a way wherein they themselves can give you some numeric value against each PO, whether it is basic science to ethics to lifelong learning, that how satisfied they are in all those 11 or 12 POs, and they can give a value from 0 to 3. Total it up for different POs for all the students. And then again, you can design your own benchmark that if 60% students are giving 3 for that particular PO, so I'll take it as 3. If 70% students are giving it, or some value you can decide. If 60% students are giving 3, I'll take it as 1. If 70% students are giving 3 for one PO, I'll consider it as level 2. And if 80% students are giving level 3 for particular PO, so for that PO, I'll consider the indirect assessment value to be 3. So some such benchmark you can again design. Oh, thank you. Aage aati jaldi. PO attainment for direct assessment only we have been talking about, let's say. Okay. It can be and it cannot be, both ways. Okay. So direct assessment without correlation. So there are two ways of carrying out the direct attainment calculation. One, you take the average of different COs mapped to different to a particular PO and use it as the attainment value, which is shown here in this example. Let's say 4 courses are mapped to a particular PO, which is, let's say, PO2, and these are the attainment values of these COs, and you simply take an average of it. This is one way of carrying out the direct attainment calculation, wherein I'm not using any correlation. Correlation means what? Remember that program articulation table that we have made, wherein different courses have different correlation value with particular POs. I can go back and show it to you. Here. Let's say in this example, basic electrical and electronics engineering is mapped to PO1 with the correlation of 2.4. Engineering thermodynamics is mapped to PO1 with the correlation of 1.5. And from where these values have come? These values have come from the course articulation matrix. Let's say engineering thermodynamics is mapped to PO1 with a correlation value of 1.2. So this value we will use here. These value we will use here in this program articulation matrix. So all these courses for different POs will have certain correlation values. Now the example for PO attainment calculation that we have taken is without the correlation, without considering those correlation. So this is one way of doing it. This is a little raw way of doing it. Other way of doing it is to use the correlation value. This is how it should be done. Some affiliating colleges who do not have that much bandwidth, they typically do it without using the correlation value, but you should use the correlation value. These are the, let's say, attainment values. For this particular course, these are the attainment values, and these are the correlation factors. These can be in fraction also, as we have seen in the program articulation matrix. These eventually would be in fractions. But whatever it is, you multiply the attained value with the correlation value divided by sum of all correlation values, sum of all the correlations. Let's say in this case, sum of correlation is 9. So I have multiplied this attained value with this correlation, this attained value with this correlation, and so on, divided by sum of correlations. That's why, and eventually you have to use it for your continuous improvement. Now, what you would do is you would set the target of PO attainments as well. Let's say maximum value that you can attain is 3. Hypothetically, to start with, you are using a very safe value of 70% of 3. Let's say this is 2.1. So you would want all your POs to attain at least 2.1 level. Some would achieve, some may not achieve. Those who have achieved, you will increase the target value from 70% to 80%, meaning 2.1 to 2.4. And for the POs where you have not achieved the target, there you will figure out the action item. You would know that which CO has not given you that attainment value. So your action item would focus more on that particular CO. Now, there are some POs where very few courses are mapped. For example, let's say ethics or teamwork. So there are some such POs where are not many COs or not many courses are mapped. So there you can use some extracurricular activities or co-curricular activities to do the PO attainment calculation. For example, participation of a student in Tech Fest or organizing some student chapter activities or participating in some hackathons wherein a team of 4 or 5 students are working together. So all such activities wherein the teamwork is involved. So those activities you can devise some mechanism to quantify them and use them for your PO attainment calculations. BTPs are also wherein more than one student is doing a project. So BTP normally we give weightage to the teamwork. In any case, we give weightage. So all those things in any ways are getting mapped when you talk about projects. But in teamwork, for example, in your regular curriculum, it is only BTP which is getting mapped with teamwork. There is hardly any other component which is getting mapped with the teamwork. So in such case only I'm saying use your co-curricular and extracurricular activities to give more mapping to your some such POs. And I think that's what somebody was asking in online, the curricular gaps. So one way is to see that how many courses are mapped to a particular PO and decide your own benchmark. Let's say out of 60 plus courses, if only 2 or 3 are mapping, you have your own benchmark. Less than 10% courses are, if they are mapped to a particular PO, you can say that there is a curricular gap. So that's how most of the institutions they do. They see the number of courses mapped to a particular PO and design their own threshold value. If the number of courses mapped to a particular PO is less than the threshold value, they call it a curricular gap. Number one. Number two, in the program articulation metrics, we have seen at the bottom also there is an average of correlation. You can also have some threshold there that if the average correlation is less than a particular value, then also I'll consider there is a curricular gap for that particular PO. But the challenge in that case is, let's say for ethics, you have one paper of ethics wherein it is mapped to the PO of ethics with full correlation 3, and you have only one component, but the average correlation would show at the bottom as 3. But so there, the first formula comes handy, wherein the number of courses mapped to a particular PO, since it is 1 in that case, in case of ethics, so that becomes my curricular gap. So sometimes that average of correlation, using that as a basis for identifying curricular gap, has that handicap. Okay, so I think we are more or less done with the basics of COPO attainment. I think it's already 12:40. So we can use next about 25-30 minutes just to have a quick look at what changes the new SAR has brought in, at least for tier 1 institutions. New SAR. Anybody applying after 1st January will have to apply in new SAR. यार हाँ दूसरे वाला लगा दो जरा. So that you have to look at question wise question. So on NBA website, your assessment sheet is given, your assessment guidelines are given. For different parameters, there are sub-parameters. For all those sub-parameters, what is expected and what are the maximum marks in all those sub-parameters, that everything is given. So you do your self-assessment that where you have documentary evidence, and they normally look at the documentary evidence or physical evidence. See, I think there are 2-3 questions if you look at the overall assessment sheet, wherein they want some formal way of some formal structure. For example, what is the system of ensuring quality of questions in the question paper, in whatever questions we are talking about? So there is a in criteria 2, there is a sub criteria which talks about the formal process of ensuring quality in question papers, which I believe, as you are saying, it's a completely instructor driven system. So there is no formal system. But if you can somehow devise a system wherein 2 or 3 professors, let's say I have prepared a question paper and 2 of my senior colleagues have seen it, or 2 of my colleagues have seen it. Now you can do it. For previous thing, no, you can always say that we have been evolving. And earlier, since it's largely instructor driven, so we left it on to the instructors. But now we have a system. So you may have evidence only for 1 year. You may not have evidences only for both the all 3 years. So you may lose 1 or 2 marks here and there, but not much. Or in some case, evaluators can give you even full marks also.
If course has been taken by more than one instructor, 4 or 5 instructors, and they have agreed to come up with us one question paper. So can we count it as a weighting?
Yeah, yeah. You can
So-
count it that it has been
So
peer
generally what
review.
we have a course coordinator, and there are multiple instructors who are teaching the same course. So it's like a local weighting between the instructors, right?
So largely it requires local vetting only, and not necessarily always HOD should do it.
Right.
But a peer group should do it.
Yes.
Like
Yes, we already that we do.
But there should be a system, and you can document it as a process.
Actually, between the instructor, we shared the question paper through emails. So that can be considered as a process, right?
If you can make a group of it, let's say this is the communication group, this is VLSI group, this is some other group. I mean, for the instructors also, for your faculty colleagues also, that these 4 faculty would look at question papers related to communication. These would look at for microprocessor or microcontrollers. These would look at for VLSI and so on.
But for the
rather than making it random.
No, but for examination point of view, just to making the question paper as a confidential document. So can we take for all those faculties who are associated with the course will.
So that definitely is one way of doing it. But let's suppose there are some courses where only one faculty is taking it.
So in that case, we can ask the head to be final.
That is the safest way. But if you don't want to burden your head with all the question papers, make a group of 3-4 senior professors in your department to do that. And there you can pick up the professors from different specializations.
Also, if we can.
And when I'm saying professor, not necessarily designated as professor, faculty colleagues.
For an example, in every institution, we have the quality assurance.
So you can have a quality assurance cell at departmental level also.
We have, and most of them have.
DAC or whatever you may call it.
DQRC.
DQRC.
They can do this.
They can do it.
Right. I mean, there are departmental level committees.
So you can have departmental level academic quality committee also. One is research quality, other could be academic. So IIT, let's say we keep them out for the timing from this discussion. We are all this discussion. Just 1 more minute. Excuse me. Sorry, just a couple of more minutes. What practice is a good practice or right practice or not so right practice? We are not getting into that discussion. We are only having this discussion with reference to NBA requirement. So what NBA requires is a proper process for certain things. One of those things is ensuring the quality of your question papers. So for that, there can be some cases where there are 4 or 5 instructors taking one course and they all are agreeing to the quality of that question paper, can be one way. And all this should be documented, right? For such courses where more than one instructor is taking that course, their agreement to the quality of question paper is considered as quality of that question paper. Other way wherein HOD, yes, that's what I'm saying. It's a formal process. So for certain things, it is expected that you have a formal process, but for certain thing, a documented view of it would be required. And one such question is this. Okay, moving on. So we are already just 15 minutes away from 1. So I'll quickly address those points which are there in the new SAR for Tier 1 institutions, and maybe lay a little more emphasis on SFR calculations, because somebody during the break had asked that how the SFR calculation in the new regime is to be done. Okay, so just quick comparison between the two SARs. The older version had 10 criteria, whereas the new version has only 9 criteria. So not visible. Can't help it. I think it's on full screen. Can you help it? I think, but it's already full screen. So, okay. Great. So 10 criteria versus 9 criteria. Earlier, 7 criteria were considered as program level criteria and 3 criteria were institution level criteria. Now, institution level criteria has been reduced to only 1 and remaining 8 have been considered as departmental level criteria or program level criteria, as you may call them. So if you see in the new structure, the terminology itself talks about outcome-based, outcome-based, outcome-based. So outcome-based curriculum, outcome-based teaching learning process, outcome-based assessment. So lot of focus in the way of discussion, communication, language, it is given to outcome-based. Okay, moving on. Again, I think you will have that problem. Lot of, I think this challenge will be with every slide. I just forgot to mention to acknowledge Professor Rangnathan for these slides, because some of these slides I have picked up from his lecture, his presentation, which he gave to some of the NBA experts in a workshop conducted by NBA. Okay. So here I think lot of weightage has been given to complex engineering problem. What would come under complex engineering problem and how this complex engineering problem is addressing different POs. How these complex engineering problems are addressing your SDGs and so on. So this is something which you may like to map, which you will actually have to map. That is number 1. Sustainability issues addressing complex engineering problems. In your rubrics of labs, PBL or projects or seminar, you'll have to map them with the corresponding POs. You have to have a column or section or a field wherein you will say that this particular project addresses to these particular POs, these many POs. This lab experiment or this particular course project addresses to this particular PO. So that small mapping projects with POs, you were already doing it. That in any case was required in earlier version also. Here also, please see if your course project also, if you can map. But mapping your minor and major project with POs is mandatory. That continues. Not for continuous evaluation. For your, if you have seminar in your curriculum, lab projects if you have. If you have lab projects, because mapping individual experiment to PO will not yield anything. Identify courses and activities which are addressing to SDGs. So which all courses are directly addressing SDGs, which all other activities that you are doing in your institution or in your department as part of your student chapter activities, as part of NSS, NCC, or some other outreach program, some social internship, some workshops, some guest lectures on some particular addressing to some particular SDGs. So you have to compile all those activities, and at the end it is expected that you will show a portfolio of that. SFR we have been discussing and we'll spend some time on it. What all would come under total student strength and total faculty count. So now there is no separate criteria for first year. It has been merged in the departmental level criteria. So this we have seen there are 9 criteria. Okay, now first change is when you have to write the curriculum structure, aligning it with the national credit framework, you have to mention the self-learning hours also. LTP you have been mentioning as part of our regular practice. Now you have to mention also the self-learning hours. Gets accounted for. Yes, just putting some hours on a table will not help. Actually, the marks for this criteria you will only get if you show the evidences. Assignment, some group assignment, some part of MOOCs if you are giving, some seminar if you are asking students to. But evidence that the students have done that. Not necessary timetable, it may not come. It should be part of your course plan for sure. No, in the course plan. In the syllabus or in the curriculum, it will show only the total credits for that course. But when you make the course plan, then you have to show that these many hours have been allocated for self-study or team study. So yeah, that is what sir has also said. Assignments, I mean the course project if you are giving, some seminars if the students are supposed to present, some term paper if the students are supposed to prepare, some MOOCs as we have been discussing. Yes, National Credit Framework. National Credit Framework. So there is a document given by UGC on National Credit Framework. Self-learning. Self-learning and teamwork. One credit should have 30 hours of self-learning or teamwork. Yeah. This I think you have been already making. The group of different courses, let's say basic science, basic engineering, program core, program elective, and then percentage of overall curriculum, total contact hours and total credits. This table I think you were already preparing. No, it will not have any credits. Yeah. So one is, let's say, some part of the overall syllabus, you are doing it in the flip mode. Let's say this part you take through this MOOCs. No, not necessary. What I'm trying to say is, let's say one component of your syllabus, you have asked students to go through that part through proposed MOOCs, and then you are only evaluating it. So evaluation is done by you from that particular portion and from that particular MOOCs. But the student is doing the self-learning for that particular portion. It may be a video, it may be a research paper. Yes, either he's doing the external assessment, he's taking the external assessment, or you assess it. No, you have to figure out that how much. See, again, if you go back to the National Credit Framework, they have given that how many hours per day you can assign to a project work, how many hours you can assign to a internship. Yeah. So as an instructor, you know, as an instructor, you know that typically a student is required to, let's say, study 2 research papers and analyze those research papers and write his summary of those research papers, let's say as part of assignment. So typically it would take 5 to 6 hours. No proof, just say review of these 2 research papers or these 3 research papers, and time allotted for this self-study is 8 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours. So that you have to judiciously say. Now, if you say that for one student has to give a summary of one research paper, and I'm allocating all 30 hours to that particular task, then you will have slight difficulty in justifying that. So judiciously for a particular task or particular this kind of assignment, as an instructor, whatever appropriate you feel, judiciously you allocate those many contact hours. Self-learning hours, in any case, you have to apply. That's perfectly okay, but indirectly you would be evaluating it. See, let's say if there is a course on digital electronics, you will definitely not give him assignment on history or something. You will definitely give him some assignment or some beyond the curriculum reading from something related to digital electronics only. So some beyond the curriculum reading also you can give as part of self-learning. Yeah, that's one. Second, whatever such topics you are giving, you may have a list of all such topics and maybe 1 or 2 submission as a proof. As a part of assignment, as part of seminar. So it is good for you. So you don't have to do much. All those traditional things which are which you want to study, which you want your students to study at their home and then come back ready with some form of deliverable. That deliverable could be a project, could be a term paper, could be an assignment, could be some understanding of MOOCs. So that you show as evidence, and to demonstrate that the student would submit something. January 2025 से. CIF नहीं, CIF आप किस चीज को बोलते हो? फाइल को बोलते हो? Okay, only for this semester you have to revise it. Or if you are applying, let's say sometime in the next semester, so for the next semester file you revise it. Previous years or previous semesters files you don't have to touch with. जो अभी करंट प्रैक्टिस है, जो करंट रनिंग सेमेस्टर है, उसमें आप रिवीजन कर सकते हैं, या जो सब्सिक्वेंट सेमेस्टर है उसमें रिवीजन कर सकते हैं. Yes, not the no tampering with the previous semesters.
Now, sir.
नहीं. करिकुलम में आप कह रहे हो कॉन्टेक्ट आवर्स हैं, so you can say so those are contact hours. Beyond those 30 hours per credit is your self-study or teamwork hours. So you don't have to actually change those documents. Those things you can reflect in your CIF, which I am taking as a course plans. Say. So what I suggest is please go through the National Credit Framework document. That will give you clarity. So what is right or wrong, we are not debating that. We are not debating or addressing that.
Sir, there is a
सर, ये
question.
सेल्फ स्टडी वाले हैं तो वो टाइम टेबल को आपको टेम्पर नहीं करेंगे. वो अपने रूम पे जाके सेल्फ स्टडी करेगा ना. He'll do the self study back at his room. You're giving some home assignments to students. Assignment means not necessarily that a student has to complete those assignments in the classroom itself. Assignments are normally you give them for a home or I mean wherever they stay. So judiciously, if you feel that a student should spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to complete that assignment, that can be taken up as a component of self-study. There may be many such components. A course project. So for course project, they'll have to get together in a team. So some teamwork component will be added up there. Some designing they'll do or whatever calls for in that particular course project. So a judicious time allocation for all those things you can add as self-study hours.
It's like we are.
Yes. You are only capturing that. You are only capturing it. Yeah. Yeah. That in any case, I'm sure your students must be doing it. For some cases, please keep some evidences. It's not that for every course, for all 30 hours, you have the evidence as a deliverable. But for all the courses, please see that you have some decent size of deliverables as testimonial available for self-study as well. एक्सेप्शंस को मत करो. डोंट ब्रिंग इन एक्सेप्शंस की कोई ईयर बैक है या कुछ है. Sir, my only response to this question is UGC has called for feedback on the draft of National Credit Framework. You should have responded at that point of time. Today, the document is as a framework available on website. So, and AICT always mention the guidelines or the regulations of Supreme Body needs to be followed. Okay, so moving on, strategies for educational reform. So whatever components of.
Kamal sir, there is one online query that is.
We will take them or ask them to
Okay.
post it to my mail or WhatsApp.
Okay, online participants, maybe one small one we can take it. That is NCRF is that similar to ECTS?
I'll not say similar, but some reference has been taken from ECTS.
Okay, yeah, that's all is there.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, I think we are left with 5-6 minutes only. So my submission is rather than getting into what's right or wrong, because neither I am in the capacity of saying that this is right or this is wrong, or similarly, you are also not in that capacity. So whatever are the guidelines or the framework, for the timing, let's stay with that and quickly see that how SFR calculation would be done. Okay, so as a part of NEP compliance, what all multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary components in your curriculum you have to identify that. And of course, I'm sure you all must be having academic bank of credit and APAR IDs, etc. It's mandatory. This was not there earlier. Mapping of courses with POs and PSOs. We had program articulation metrics wherein the COs were mapped to the POs, but now they want your courses also to be mapped with POs. And that's where somebody in the little while back asked that how to identify the curricular gap. So that can be one basis wherein if number of courses mapped to a particular program, a particular PO are lesser, then that can be identified as curriculum gap. Quality of a student project, of course, that would carry significant marks, wherein the alignment of project with environment, sustainability, safety, ethics, cost, and so on, you have to somehow justify. Apart from the rubrics, apart from the quality of project, how the project is addressing to some of such parameters that you will have to justify. Complex engineering problem we have seen. I'll quickly show you one example. Let's say this is a problem that you have given. Develop an environmentally friendly water filter that uses biochar made from agricultural waste for removal of harmful contaminants from drinking water. So some inputs and then expected outcomes are sustainable water purification method, enhanced understanding of biochar properties, and SDG that has been targeted in this complex engineering problem is SDG 6, which talks about clean water and sanitation. So this is not clearly visible here. Even if I make it to full screen, please see if something is visible here or not. Okay. So since the project would use the fundamentals of chemistry for chemical reactions and pyrolysis, this particular knowledge attribute is covered. Fundamentals of environmental science, contaminants and their behavior and their environmental impact. So such fundamental things are getting covered. So knowledge profile 1 is getting addressed. Then you are talking about pollution reduction, water quality improvement, sustainable practices and circular economy and so on. So knowledge profile 5 is also getting addressed. And then you're talking about using agricultural waste for ensuring environmental sustainability and so on. So that's how for a you are supposed to break down the key requirements or key skills that the student would demonstrate while solving a complex engineering problem or a project into the usage of basic science, maths, and computing ability, and how the it is getting integrated with the technology, and how this technology is solving your any one of the sustainable development goal. So that some breakdown and mapping you will have to do. These are Washington Accord knowledge profiles. So these are also given as an annexure to this presentation. It's there on NBA website also. So while talking about evaluation of project, evidence of addressing sustainable development goals is also important. So when you are listing down your projects and when you are mapping your projects with the POs, also have another column saying that this project is addressing this particular SDG. No need to do it retrospectively. Okay, so admissions, this is the kind of table that you have been filling up so far, wherein N is the sanctioned strength, N1 is the number of students actually admitted minus those who have migrated to other programs, and N2 was number of students admitted in through lateral entry. Next, please. आप ही करो इसको क्योंकि you will do it full scale, full screen. नहीं फॉरवर्ड नहीं इसको ब्लो अप नहीं करना है वो टेबल से ओके ओके सो इन योर अच्छा ठीक है आप रहने दीजिए उसको so this is the kind of table we have been already preparing. The only difference here is now we are adding another row to account for students who come in or who go out under multiple entry, multiple exit scheme. So now because as per NEP, all universities are supposed to have policy for multiple entry, multiple exits. So eventually some students at some stage of your program would come into the system, and some students at some stage would go out from your institution or from that particular program. So now they have accounted for such students. So that's the only difference. So I'll skip. So they have given it some example for that, and it's all there. I mean, it will be there in this presentation. So maybe later you can refer it. So same. It is getting addressed here. So these 4 and 2 are actually multiple entry and multiple exit. Okay, so ratio is based on always on first year enrollment. So that is fine. Okay. Now in SFR calculation, one major difference is up till now we have been considering only the relevant program. Let's say you have 4 or 5 versions of computer science engineering, CSC with AI/ML, CSC with data science, CSC with blockchain and cloud computing and so on. And you are applying only for plain CSC. So as of now, we were considering only the students of plain CSC and faculty members of that program. There were always some confusion that this faculty is teaching in another program also, or some institutions might have pulled up some faculty from other specialization, and for the purpose of NBA and to have sufficient SFR, they are showing them transferred to plain computer science. So to avoid all such confusions, now what NBA has done, they have considered students of all corresponding UG programs in the all BTech CSC students, all BTech CSC AI/ML students, all data science students, all cloud computing students, and so forth and so on. And similarly, all PG students and all the allied department also. Let's say if you have CSC as one department and IT as another department, so students and faculty of those departments also have been included, and it is considered as one cluster. So it is now SFR calculation, faculty qualification calculation, and faculty cadre calculation, not only for the faculty allocated for that particular program, but all the faculties of allied program and allied department, and all the students of allied program and allied department have been considered. So if you see one example which NBA has given, and it is there in, okay, just one more thing before we move on to that. So, no, for 3 things: SFR calculation, faculty qualification calculation, and faculty cadre proportion calculation. For these 3 things. No, NBA would be awarded to only the core computer science only. Other program also. Yes. So in some colleges, there was some confusion, and it will be clear through this table. Let's say the sanctioned strength was 120 and actual intake is 88. 44 have been 44 have been enrolled through lateral entry. So what some institutions and some evaluators mistakenly would do, because NBA guidelines says sanctioned strength plus actual lateral entry. So they would consider it as 120 plus 44, 164. But now NBA has very clearly specified that the total strength cannot be more than sanctioned strength plus 10% of lateral entry. Earlier, some institutions and even some evaluators like me, we were misinterpreting the statement given by NBA that total strength would be sanctioned strength plus actual admission through lateral entry. Now, in this case, if you see, the actual admission through lateral entry are 44. So as per the previous interpretation, the total strength would have been 120 plus 44, 164. Now the SFR calculation somebody would do based on 164, but that's the wrong way of calculating it. Right way of calculating it is, in any case, the total strength would not increase 120 plus 10% of lateral entry. So that means 132. Hope Sandeep, it is clear. No. So if the total strength is less than sanctioned strength plus 10% of lateral entry, then you would consider that. If your lateral entry itself is less than the 10%, you would consider that as addition to the sanctioned strength. That would also be an example somewhere. Let's say actually also you have admitted 120. You could have admitted 12 through lateral entry, but you have admitted only 6. So your actual strength is 126. What I'm saying is previously some confusion was there because NBA guidelines suggest that the total strength would be considered as sanctioned strength plus actual admitted through lateral entry. Now, if you see the bottom two cases, sanctioned strength is 120 only. Actual admitted through lateral entry is 44. So some institution and some evaluators would consider the actual strength as 120 plus 44 equal to 164. That would be wrong way of calculating. So that's what NBA has clarified now, that in no case, no circumstances, the total strength would cross sanctioned strength plus 10% of sanctioned strength. That's what I'm telling you. No. See, because you will design your everything based on the sanctioned strength. Your infrastructure, your faculty, you would plan for sanctioned strength. So that was the premises of taking sanctioned strength as the base. Plus, government has allowed, or AICT has allowed 10% as lateral entry. So you would plan everything based on sanctioned strength plus 10% of lateral entry. So that was the premises. Lateral entry to fill up those vacant seats. What previously mistake both the parties were doing is, we were taking, and I have seen it many times, in many affiliating colleges, actual entry for your circuit programs, electrical, electronics would be 4, 5 or so on, only out of 60. Remaining 50, 60, they would add through lateral entry. So calculation, what we were doing earlier was 60 plus 55, 110. So for all those 4-5 years, if you put them together, the total strength would become too much. And keep maintaining and keeping an SFR based on that strength was illogical. So to avoid those confusions, they have clarified that thing. Okay, SFR, as I was saying, there would be so many UGs. Let's say this UG1, second year, third year, fourth year, UG2, second year, third year, fourth year. Similarly, different PGs, first year, second year. So you'll put them all together. This I'm skipping and straight away coming to an, okay. So for example, you have CSC, CSC AI, CSC AI ML, and so on. And that's the another department, information technology. So that also has been added. Okay, so that's the how the total strength has been counted for this particular program. This is the strength for this particular program. This is the strength. Similarly, for this particular program, this is the strength, and so on. Adding everything together, the total students from your department are 1,964 and so on. These are from the allied departments, that is information technology. So total student, UG students become actually these many. And these are the PG students. 36 are the PG students. They considered only one PG program. Now, number of faculty members in your department are 95. In your allied department of information technology, 25. So total 120. That have to, some faculty load for first year you have to take out. In this example, they have not done. So this has to be subtracted from this count of 120. Whatever comes, you have to divide the total strength by minus first year faculty. Now, somebody was asking that how to account for the first year faculty as they take fractional load. So what most experts do, they calculate the total first year load of related to your department. Let's say you are electronics department. So in your entire institute, in the first year, how many courses are there related to electronics? Courses, labs, workshops related to electronics. What is the total contact hours for that particular course? So you add that up for all the programs that you have in your institution. Let's say total comes to 24 hours. One, you divide them into the semesters. Because in some programs it would run in semester 1, in some other programs it would run in semester 2. So you divide whatever is your cumulative first year load related to your department, divide them into 2 semesters and see if it is, let's say in this example, 24 divided by 2 is 12. So one faculty would be allocated for first year. So typical AICT load, what they recommend, 14 to 15 hours is what they recommend. So 14 to 15 hours worth first year faculty, you would subtract from the total faculty count. So okay, total 16 hours. $30. So total 55. $30 per semester. So 2 faculty, 2 you can take out safely, teaching that 30 hours. So that's how, irrespective of fractional load of 6 faculty members taking those 30 hours, that's how most institutions and evaluators do. Total load a faculty can take is considered as 14 to 15 hours, and accordingly they take out the faculty count. No, it is irrespective of students in that batch, because in any case, as a faculty, you have to devote that much time. Contact hours you have to take. So as I was saying, faculty qualification also and cadre proportion ratio also, you have to use the same faculty number. Faculty retention calculation, very interestingly, they have changed. It is very clear as per the formula given by them. Earlier, we were counting that these many faculties were there in CAY M2. Out of those, these many could continue in CAY M1. take a fraction of that, take a percentage of that, and out of those, these many could continue in CAY and again take a fraction of that and then take a average. So that was the previous practice. Now what they have done is they have simply asked that in CAY M1, how many faculty members have less than 1 year experience in your institution? In your institution is very important. How many faculty members have 1 to 2 years of experience? 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4, and more than 4 years. And they have given a formula how to compute the retention. So this also has changed and made it a little unambiguous, which earlier was ambiguous. So a lot of ambiguities which were there in earlier SAR, they have tried to remove. One major change, student count and faculty count for SFR calculation has been taken not only for that particular program, but all the similar programs in the department and in the allied departments that have been considered, not only for students, but for faculty also. Another simplification that they have made is for the lateral entry, that the total strength cannot exceed the sanctioned strength plus 10% of for the lateral entry. So that ambiguity also they have removed. The only few things that you need to work little extra is on addressing your projects, micro projects or mini projects with SDGs, and also that redo that LTP thing with LTP plus self-study. And for some cases, some projects, see that if you can, like that biochar filter example that we saw, if you can make some breakup for some projects or for some micro projects or course project or some design project, if you have a design course and for that some questions if you are giving, those questions or projects, if you can divide them into the competencies that the student would demonstrate while executing that project, and eventually the SDG with which that particular question or project is getting mapped with. It is already shared. So I'm sure Sandeep and Dr. Kusum would do that. So thank you.
Okay.
To the online participants.
Yes, sir. So online participation, online participants, is there any query? Do you want to write something for the speaker? Maybe quick 1 or 2 questions. We'll share with them. Yes. Right.
They want to seek any kind.
Right. Okay. So right, as of now, they're not writing any questions. Online participants. So online participants, we would be sharing Professor Kamal contact details with all of you. So in case if you have a query at a later point in time, you can contact to him. We would like to thank Professor Kamal for being here with us and having a thorough discussion of 3 hours, more than that actually, yeah, 3.5. And thank you so much for that. A small token of appreciation we would like to give from Alanam IIT for being here as an eminent speaker of this FDP organized by jointly with MNIT Jaipur. And it is coming under the umbrella of MIT, this FDP.
My alma mater, my MNIT Jaipur and the funding organization.
Right. So I request Professor Suresh to hand over a token of appreciation from Alanam IIT to the speaker. We would like to thank you for that. Santosh, can you please capture a photo? Thank you so much for being here. Such a wonderful Okay, so thanks for joining this FDP here and online as well. We are breaking for the lunch and we'll be starting the next session after just after 1 hour from now. So that means 2:30 will be